Hi guys, what's up? It's Ben, and today we are talking about winter camping. Winter camping can be especially daunting with the cold temperatures and balmy weather, but this video I'll show you how to keep warm and gear you should take. So let's get started. Okay, so right now we're going to start talking about gear to bring. So there's lots of gear that's good for this. First of all, don't take a hammock. If you like hammock camping, that's fine. But with winter, you should try to take a tent. Hammocks have really bad insulation because they have a really thin bottom. And if you do have to sleep in a hammock, make sure you bring a really thick pad for your sleeping bag to go on, or you'll be really cold and it won't be fun. Otherwise, bring a tent if you can, because tents are usually a little bit warmer and they have better insulation. Okay. Another thing to bring is a sleeping bag. It will get really cold at night, and you're gonna need something to keep yourself warm. You can't really take a warm like a spring sleeping bag. You need to take something that can deal with the cold temperatures, so like a mummy bag or a cold weather sleeping bag. They're usually rated for this. So if you're buying one, it should have a little rating. It will go down to like 32 degrees or something. If not, you can also get a sleeping bag liner, which are also pretty useful. You can just throw them in a sleeping bag and they can line it, be a little bit warmer. Another thing to bring for when you're sleeping is like a hat, a knitted hat, so you can keep some of your temperature coming off from your head warm, because usually those don't protect your face very well. Another thing, when you're going about, your hands can get really dry and stuff, so make sure, and it's gonna be hard to lift things, so make sure to bring gloves and to keep your hands dry and warm. Otherwise you'll have a pretty miserable time, and that's pretty much no brainer. Another thing is to bring chapstick. Sometimes your lips can get really chapped in the dry weather, and that can really be painful after like a day or two. So make sure to bring chapstick if you can. Make sure to also bring a heavy coat. This can be pretty much most coats. Just make sure it's pretty heavy. It has a lot of padding and can keep you warm. And also make sure it's windproof too, so if it's blowing wind, you can get a little bit warmer, and make sure it's also waterproof too, because you don't want to be taking tons of coats and stuff. Another useful thing to bring is long underwear, so you can keep warm. Those actually really work pretty well, and they're useful to bring, and they're not too much of a pain to wear, and they really keep you nice and warm all day. One other more essential thing is hot hands. You can pick these up pretty much any camping place. You shake them up and they basically produce heat for like upwards of like 8 to 10 hours, and they work pretty well depending on which brand you get. Also, they're useful at night. You can just throw in your sleeping bag and it can warm your feet up a little bit. Just make sure they're not touching your bare skin, or that will hurt a lot because of the way they work. Now we're going to be talking about staying warm. So there's several ways you can try to keep warm. First one is wearing lots of layers. Make sure you wear, like I said earlier, take your long johns, a heavy shirt, and a coat, and if it's really cold out, you can always wear a sweatshirt. Pants too. Make sure you wear something. If you're just wearing a thin pair of pants, your legs will get really cold, so make sure you're wearing something a little bit more heavier than that. Another essential way is to keep dry. Moisture can cause your internal body temperature to go down. It can cause hypothermia. So if you're wet, always change clothes, which is another thing. Bring lots of changes of clothes, or so you can change it if they get wet or something. Also, try not to sweat, because that can cause moisture and can also cause your body to cool down a lot. So try to not get too hot because then you'll get cold because you sweat. Another thing important for winter camping is to drink lots. You won't really feel like drinking much, especially in the cold winter, but you really will need to, or you'll get really dehydrated. So make sure you drink lots, especially if you're doing a lot of activities. Another thing is a fire at night. It will get pretty cold depending on where you're camping and what the temperature is. A fire will pretty much keep you warm if you build it up and hang out around it with some buddies. You'll feel just fine and warm for hours as long as you have wood. So if you're camping, also collect wood during the day so you have a good stockpile at night, so you can have a good several hour fire, and also have some in the morning so when you wake up you don't freeze. Another thing is to switch your socks often. So if you're camping and you're going right to bed, make sure to switch your socks because your socks can get moist and wet, which will really be miserable, especially when you're sleeping at night, because your feet are like at the very end and it can get cold. So also make sure to wear many layers of socks, but also make sure to replace your socks at least once a day. So that about wraps up this video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't already, subscribe, and see you next time. Bye.